North Carolina is the only place in America where you can start your morning at sea level and end it on a mountain higher than anywhere east of South Dakota, all in the same day. Most Americans think of this state as barbecue and basketball. But beneath that surface sits a collection of geographic oddities, historic firsts, and cultural contradictions that most people have never heard about. These 18 facts will show you why North Carolina doesn't fit into any easy category. The barrier islands along North Carolina's coasts aren't just eroding, they're migrating westward at a measurable rate. Sand from the ocean side gets blown and washed over the islands, slowly pushing them toward the mainland. In some areas, the islands have moved more than 200 feet in the past century. Houses that were once inland now sit dangerously close to the surf. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, built in 1870, had to be physically relocated 2,900 feet inland in 1999 because the ocean was closing in. This isn't a slow geological process you'd never notice. It's happening fast enough that entire communities have been abandoned. The village of Portsmouth, once a thriving port town, is now a ghost town accessible only by boat. North Carolina's coastline is one of the most unstable in the country, and it's reshaping itself in real time. Everyone knows the Wright Brothers flew the first powered airplane at Kitty Hawk in 1903. What most people don't know is that Orville and Wilbur Wright were from Ohio. They traveled to North Carolina specifically because of the wind conditions and soft sand dunes that would cushion crashes. They conducted their experiments for years, living in a primitive camp near Kill Devil Hills, then immediately returned to Ohio after their successful flight. North Carolina gets the credit because that's where it happened, but the Wrights had no ties to the state beyond that beach. The rivalry between Ohio and North Carolina over who owns the Wright Brothers is real. Ohio's license plates say birthplace of aviation. North Carolina's say first in flight. Both states are technically correct, but North Carolina won the geographic lottery. If you're already realizing how much you didn't know about this state, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next 23 facts. Drop a comment and tell us which fact has surprised you most so far. We actually read them. North Carolina is home to over 400 craft breweries, more than any state in the South and more breweries per capita than Germany. This explosion happened in the last 15 years. Asheville alone has more than 100 breweries and is often called Beer City, USA. The industry generates billions in revenue and employs tens of thousands of people. You can't drive through most North Carolina towns without passing at least one tap room. The state wasn't always this way. Up until 2005, it was illegal to brew beer stronger than 6% alcohol by volume. Once that law changed, the floodgates opened. Now North Carolina is one of the top craft beer destinations in the world. And most Americans have no idea. The Biltmore Estate in Asheville is the largest privately owned house in the United States, with 178,926 square feet of floor space. To put that in perspective, it's bigger than Buckingham Palace. The house has 250 rooms, including 35 bedrooms and 43 bathrooms. It was built by George Vanderbilt in the 1890s and took 6 years to complete. The estate originally covered 125,000 acres, roughly the size of a small city. Vanderbilt wanted a mountain retreat, so he hired the best architect in America and imported European craftsmen to build it. The house has a bowling alley, an indoor pool, and its own electrical plant. Today, it's one of the most visited historic homes in the country. Most people think of southern mansions as plantation houses with columns. This isn't that. This is a French chateau dropped in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. In 1893, a pharmacist named Caleb Bradham created Pepsi Cola in New Bern, North Carolina, as a digestive aid. He originally called it Brad's Drink and sold it at his drugstore fountain. The drink became popular, and Bradham rebranded it as Pepsi Cola, claiming it cured dyspepsia, indigestion. By the early 1900s, he was bottling and distributing it across the state. Then World War I hit. Sugar prices skyrocketed. Bradham speculated badly, and the company went bankrupt in 1923. Pepsi was sold off and eventually became the global brand it is today, but it started as a local North Carolina remedy. You can still visit the original Pepsi store in New Bern. It's now a museum, but the soda fountain still works. The most famous pirate in history was killed in a brutal battle off the coast of Ocracoke Island in 1718. Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard, used North Carolina's inlets and barrier islands to hide from authorities. He even received a pardon from the governor at one point. But Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy tracked him down near Ocracoke and engaged him in hand-to-hand combat. Blackbeard was shot 5 times and stabbed more than 20 times before he finally died. Maynard decapitated him and hung his head from the bowsprit of his ship as proof. Legend says Blackbeard's headless body swam around the ship several times before sinking. North Carolina's coast wasn't just a pirate hideout. It was where the golden age of piracy came to an end. North Carolina grows about 60% of the sweet potatoes consumed in the United States. The state produces over 1 billion pounds of sweet potatoes every year, mostly in the eastern counties. The climate and sandy soil are perfect for the crop. North Carolina has been the top sweet potato producer for decades, and it's not even close. Most Americans assume sweet potatoes come from the deep south or the southwest, but the truth is they're probably eating a North Carolina sweet potato and don't know it. The state even has a sweet potato commission that promotes the crop and funds research. It's that serious. Mount Mitchell, at 6,684 feet, is the tallest mountain east of the Mississippi River. It's higher than anything in the Appalachian Trail's northern sections. It's higher than the White Mountains in New Hampshire. It's higher than the Adirondacks in New York. North Carolina holds the record, and most people assume the highest peaks are further north. The mountain is named after Elijah Mitchell, a professor who fell to his death in 1857 while trying to verify its height. He's buried at the summit. The peak is part of the Black Mountain Range, and on clear days you can see up to 85 miles in every direction. The air is thin, the temperatures are cold, and the ecosystem resembles southern Canada. You don't have to go west to find serious mountains. North Carolina has them. During the Civil War, North Carolina almost didn't secede, and when it did, it was deeply divided. Western North Carolina, particularly the mountain counties, opposed secession. Many residents there didn't own slaves and had little economic interest in the plantation system. Some counties even tried to stay neutral or form their own pro-Union militias. The state supplied more Confederate soldiers than any other, but it also had one of the largest numbers of Union sympathizers. Entire communities were torn apart by the war, with neighbors fighting on opposite sides. North Carolina was the last state to join the Confederacy, and the first to call for reconciliation after the war ended. Its internal divisions ran so deep that some historians argue it never fully unified. North Carolina didn't repeal its law banning the teaching of evolution in public schools until 1969, more than 40 years after the Scopes trial. The law, passed in 1925, made it illegal for teachers to present evolution as fact. Teachers either avoided the subject entirely or taught it as just a theory alongside creationism. The law stayed on the books long after most other states had abandoned similar legislation. It wasn't enforced rigorously in later years, but it remained state law. North Carolina was one of the last states to officially remove it. The ban reflects how culturally and politically divided the state has always been, progressive in some areas, deeply conservative in others. North Carolina was the site of more Revolutionary War battles and skirmishes than any other colony. Over 70 engagements took place in North Carolina soil, from small skirmishes to major battles like Guilford Courthouse and Moores Creek Bridge. The British tried repeatedly to control the state because of its strategic location and resources, but local militias made it nearly impossible. Most history books focus on Massachusetts and Virginia, but North Carolina was a constant battleground. The war in the South was brutal, and much of it happened there. The state's role in the revolution is underappreciated, but it was central to winning independence. In 1933, a hurricane cut an inlet through the Outer Banks that wasn't supposed to exist. The storm created Oregon Inlet, which split Bodie Island from Hatteras Island. Before the hurricane, it was a continuous stretch of sand. Afterward, there was a deep channel connecting the Atlantic Ocean to Pamlico Sound. The inlet became strategically important during World War II and remains one of the most dangerous navigation channels in the East Coast. Shifting sands constantly changed its depth and position, and boats wreck regularly trying to pass through. A single storm permanently altered North Carolina's coastline, and the inlet is still there 90 years later. North Carolina is full of oddly named towns: Whynot, Lizard Lick, Toast, Climax, and Batcave. Whynot got its name in the early 1900s when residents were trying to pick a name for their new post office. After rejecting several suggestions, someone reportedly said, "Why not name it Whynot?" So they did. These aren't tourist traps or jokes. They're real towns where people live and work. The names reflect a combination of local humor, geographic features, and historical quirks. Driving through rural North Carolina means passing signs for places that sound made up, but aren't. If these facts are changing how you think about North Carolina, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with the fact that surprised you most. We want to know which one hit differently for you. Duke University, one of the most prestigious schools in the country, was built on profits from cigarettes. Washington Duke and his son James Duke made a fortune in the tobacco industry in the late 1800s. They mechanized cigarette production, which made smoking affordable and widespread. In 1924, James Duke donated millions to Trinity College in Durham, which was then renamed Duke University. The school's Gothic architecture and sprawling campus were all funded by tobacco profits. The Duke family's wealth came directly from an industry that would later be proven to cause cancer and kill millions. North Carolina's academic and medical reputation is now world-class, but it started with cigarettes. North Carolina is home to more historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, than any other state. There are 10 HBCUs in North Carolina, including North Carolina A&T, the largest HBCU in the country. These institutions were founded after the Civil War to educate formerly enslaved people and their descendants, and they've produced generations of leaders, doctors, teachers, and professionals. North Carolina's HBCU network is a point of pride and a testament to resilience in the face of segregation and inequality. These schools remain vital centers of education and culture. The state's history with race is complicated, but its commitment to black education is undeniable. High Point, North Carolina is known as the furniture capital of the world. The city hosts the High Point Market twice a year, the largest furniture trade show in the world. Buyers from over 100 countries attend to place orders worth billions of dollars. The industry in North Carolina employed over 50,000 people at its peak. Manufacturing has declined due to outsourcing, but the design and distribution center remains in High Point. The city has entire showrooms spanning millions of square feet. Most Americans have no idea that when they buy furniture, it's a good chance it was designed, marketed, and distributed through North Carolina. Lake Mattamuskeet, North Carolina's largest natural lake, was once completely drained in an attempt to turn it into farmland. In the early 1900s, developers pumped the lake dry using the world's largest pumping station at the time. They planted crops on the lake bed, but the soil was too acidic and waterlogged. The project failed, and the lake refilled naturally. Today, it's a national wildlife refuge and one of the most important habitats for migratory birds on the East Coast. The old pumping station still stands as a reminder of the failed experiment. North Carolina tried to eliminate its largest lake, failed, and now protects it as wilderness. North Carolina remained a dry state, where alcohol sales were illegal until 1937. 4 years after Prohibition ended nationally. Even after repeal, the state maintained strict control over alcohol. Until 1978, mixed drinks were illegal in restaurants. The state still operates all liquor stores through the Alcoholic Beverage Control System, and many counties remain partially or fully dry today. North Carolina has one of the most complicated alcohol regulatory systems in the country. You can buy beer and wine in grocery stores, but have to go to a state-run ABC store for liquor. The state's relationship with alcohol reflects its ongoing tension between conservative values and modern culture. Most people think of North Carolina as a mid-Atlantic state that's polite, predictable, and easy to summarize. But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. You find moving islands, towns named Whynot, and a dialect that sounds like it came from 18th century England. You find a state that tried to drain its largest lake and ban evolution from schools. When visitors come to North Carolina, they expect one thing. What they actually find is 25 different states compressed into one, each with its own history, personality, and odd little secrets. That's what makes it worth paying attention to. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Did I miss a wild North Carolina fact that should have been on this list? Let us know in the comments. If you learned something today, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into places that don't get enough attention, and we'll see you in the next one.